In this video, I'm going to show you how to double your private practice working only 3 days per week. This is the process that we like to help all of our clinicians install, how to get more out of the time that you work. And this won't mean that you don't have to work to grow your practice, but it will mean that you know the right ways to use your time to effectively get the practice you want, and how to make more, work less, so that you can take a vacation, you can enjoy your life in addition to providing a very high quality service. So take notes, we're going to jump into it right now. So with that, let me show you how to double your practice working 3 days per week. To start, I want to tell you a story. Last year, about exactly a year ago, I had a potential client reach out to me. Her name was Monica. She's with her husband, Troy. They've been trying to build their practice for about 4 months and not finding a lot of success. They had some clients. She had a premium rate of $250 an hour, which is a pretty good sign that we can make this practice successful. She was well trained. She was a psychologist, but she came to me and they said, they didn't really know exactly what to do. They said they were working 80 hours a week. Her husband was pretty technical, so he was trying to do the website and the SEO and all this stuff. She was doing social media. She was doing everything, right? And they came to me and they were like, we don't know what's right. We feel like we're doing everything. It's not quite getting traction. Okay. So over the course of the next several months working together, what I helped them understand was this. Okay. It is not about how much work you do, especially when we're talking about marketing the practice. Quantity is really important. I like to reference that, but it has nothing to do with the amount of hours that you spend working. Okay. It has everything to do with the quality and the strategy. We need to spend sometimes as much time thinking about what is the right thing to do as we do applying the right thing to do. Okay. So you might be in a position yourself where you've maybe talked to a lot of people, or you're trying to figure out, hey, what's the best way to grow my practice? So you might be in a spot where you're trying to figure out what the best way to grow your practice is. It's important to get this right. And I would really recommend pattern matching to somebody else's practice, to something else that you can model. So you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but then it's really important to do each of these strategies well. Okay. So what happened in the case of Monica and Troy? For them, I decided to go down the Google Ads route. I knew that we could target trauma therapy in their local city, and I set up the campaign. I set up the landing page for them, got it working right. And this thing, after about a month of trial and kind of working the campaign, it took off like a rocket ship, right? After 2 or 3 months, she got 5 clients in one day at $250 an hour from this system that we built. But the thing about it was, once I set it up and started to kind of, do a little bit of tweaks over the first month to make the same thing better, it worked and it continued to work. And she told me over time, her amount of work on marketing each week went from like what felt like 80 hours a week, maybe it was more like 40, 50, down to like 4 hours a week. Okay. And the practice went from $4,000 a month to $16,000 a month. That was an example of applying one good system to get the practice to the level that she wanted so that she could focus on the clinical work. I'm going to say, if you're somebody who's trying to grow your practice right now and you've not put a lot of marketing time in, you have to put in marketing time. I'm not saying you don't have to, but what we put the time into and the leverage we have in each one of these systems is going to determine how easy it is to grow your practice. Okay. So let me jump into the screen share. So this is doubling your practice in 3 days per week. One of the fundamental points to this is leverage, which really means how to get more output over same input. Okay. There are things that compound within your business. There are things that can really, really take off. Like I just mentioned, an advertising system is one of those things. If we can get that set up in the background so that you're getting clients while you sleep, you get new people, you wake up in the morning and they're coming in, that's really, really great. I believe that pretty much every therapist should have this. If you're a group practice owner, if you're a solo practice owner, I think it's really important. On the other hand, things like relationships can compound over time, establishing relationships in your community, or things like media like this can compound, right? If you create content on your Instagram page, you start to create a following over time. These are things that can take a good amount of work up front, but then can provide a lot of resources over time. The question I like to ask, and we were asking this on a group call yesterday, I was saying this to my clinicians that we work with, is, the same principle, which is, it's not about hard work. It's about the right work, and then doing a lot of that work. And that might feel like hard work, but it's about being directionally correct. So the question is, what's the easiest way to grow my practice? Okay. Or in other words, how could I do all of my marketing in 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week? Okay. Not 0 hours a week, not spending any money on advertising. You have to put something in to get something out. There has to be an input, but what is the easiest input, or how can I get the most bang for my buck? Okay. If you want to work just 3 days in your week, we've had people that we've worked with before that have gotten to 12 grand a month working 3 days a week, right? So they have 4 days off a week that they can spend with their family. They can be completely off of work. They have really good boundaries, and they're just working 3 days a week to make more than 6 figures. You can do this and include your marketing time within it. But the thing you need to do is be really, really smart about what your marketing is. I really recommend having an advertising system that's running in the background. Advertising is one of those things that I have found that just continues to work. Once you get it right, and I want to be clear, sometimes it doesn't work in the first 4 days that we launch it, but sometimes after a month or 2 months of just tweaking things and trial and error, or really what I would say is smart improvements on a campaign based on the data and the numbers, we can get something that works for a year or 2 years or 3 years. We've had some clinicians that we set up ad campaigns for a couple years ago that are still working, right? And they've built group practices off the back of it, right? Or group practice owners that have built, these ad systems that have then used it to hire multiple clinicians. It's one of those things that there's such a big return for figuring it out that I highly recommend. Advertising, I wouldn't say is necessarily the easiest, but if you know someone who's good at advertising, or you can figure out and learn it, it's one of the highest leverage things that can get your practice going. And it can be the easiest in month 3 compared to what you have today. This is a good way to grow the practice and double it within 3 days a week. On the other hand, let's say there's social media content. Now, if you're like pretty much every single therapist I know, this is not an easy thing to do for you. Okay. So if you only have a couple hours a week, how can you produce not just social media content, but quality social media content that can bring more people in? Honestly, the recommendation would be, if you've never done it before, you have to start doing it so you learn how it works, okay? I really recommend that if you're going to do any marketing strategy, you should be willing to do it until you get the result from it, right? Not to say that a marketing strategy doesn't work. SEO works. Ads work, Instagram ads work, Facebook ads work, Google ads work, relationship building works, directories work, everything works, but the difference is often quality, right? The quality of your professional photos, the quality of your copywriting, the quality of your social media content. And we can't get to quality on day one. Right? We can't start off being really, really good. And so in the same way, if you want to work 3 days a week, you might have to work a little bit more, work more on those 3 days to build up and work to the point where you only have to work 6 to 8 hours a day to make 8 grand a month, 10 grand a month, 15 grand a month. Okay. So what I would say here is, what you can do is you can create a system around any of your marketing. And I'll walk you through how to do this as well. Because let's say you had an advertising system running in the background. We've seen that, very consistently double or triple somebody's practice. You had some way to do organic content, whether you're creating blog posts or you're creating something on social media, or you're adapting your directories that you're putting out. Something that you do every single week to feed the practice, because I've never found a practice where the person doesn't have to market at all for multiple years. There's usually something they have to do or interact with to continue to get new referrals flowing in. Something within your practice that you're doing every single week. And the other thing is pricing. The reality is just math. It is sessions per week times the rate per session. And if you want to double the practice, you can get more of these within that 3 days a week, or you can get more of this. You can get more money per session. Okay. And sometimes getting more money per session is the easiest thing. So a very basic example is, if you're at 125 for your session, you can send a letter out to all your clients that, hey, every new year you do up the prices. Maybe you go to 140 or you go to 150. Even if all clients don't accept, as long as you have new people coming in to replace the ones that leave, your practice will grow by 13, 15% doing the same amount of work, right? So having a higher rate and having a marketing system that brings new people in and increasing the average rate over time can get you to the point where you go from 80,000 a year to 160,000 a year, even though you're working less. Okay. So pricing, I'm going to say you can send a letter to your clients. You obviously don't raise your price all the time. This might be once a year, or if you haven't raised some of these people in 4 years, you might decide to do it. Some of them might go to bi-weekly. So you might see a short-term dip in income, but a long-term growth as you have the marketing bring new people in. Okay. So that's how this works. Last thing I'm going to talk about is simple. It's called time blocking. Okay. And we're talking about making systems within this. I believe this because I see it all the time. You can have 2 hours a week that are expertly applied, and you can drive new people in the door for your practice Marketing is going to make the difference towards the ultimate income that you can bring in, you know, and part of the marketing can be having clients that talk to each other and bring new people in. Some populations aren't as chatty as other though, so that's not something you can always rely on as word of mouth. But the other one is some consistent way to market. Like I said, there's many different strategies you can choose, but if you can block off a couple hours a week every week to focus on growth in your practice, you're going to be able to achieve growth. Okay. Now, 2 hours a week, time blocking. What I would like to do is something like relationship building, where I'm consistently building new relationships within that time. Okay. I might be reaching out to colleagues and building new relationships. And I would have data that I would be expecting from it. The question is, how can I do this in 2 hours a week? If it's the first time you've ever done it, it might take a lot longer than 2 hours a week. It might take 5 hours a week, but how can you get to getting more from each hour of time invested? You do this, you create a system. This is step one, which is you're going to document. What I would do is I would record, what am I doing? Okay, when I start, I am doing this, right? I am trying to find new people to reach out to. I'm going to this platform and I'm taking their name, email, and phone number, for example, right? And you know, this is what I look for. This is what I don't look for. I'm going to document, and I'm going to do the entire process of how I actually go about how this actually leads to something that builds my business. From there, second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at deleting stuff within my process that's not very helpful. For example, maybe I'm spending, 40 minutes of that 4 hours on stuff that doesn't actually matter to what I'm trying to do. I'm just overthinking, or I'm spending too much time looking for each individual person. So I'm going to say, okay, I only have 2 minutes to look for each person, as an example. So I would be shortening the process to the things that matter the most within it. From there, I might go from, 4 hours to 3 hours or 2.5 hours to do this sort of essential marketing practice for my business. And then from there, you can continue to do that. You can document, you can delete, you can document, you can delete, or you can, work harder in that time period so you can double your output. You can use something like ChatGPT to do some of the work for you, right? There's a lot of ways that you can be really efficient so that time block is really, really helpful for your business. Number 3, the advanced method is delegate, okay? Once you've documented the work that it takes to market your practice, it's much easier to then hire someone to do it at $10 an hour as an example, okay? So if it's relationship building, I might hire a virtual assistant off Upwork.com, for example, to say, hey, this is the initial part of this process that I do. It takes me 2 hours a week. Can you do this? I'll pay you X amount per hour to do this, and I just want you to do it every single week. Now you can use money to save yourself that 2 hours of that process. So again, maybe it was 4 hours originally. You deleted some process, made it more efficient. It's 3 hours. Now you gave away 2 hours to somebody else to do it for you. Now there's only really maybe the hour. Maybe you have to actually jump on the phone and talk to people. Okay. This is how you can go from, having something that's working within marketing to a systematized process that actually feels really easy, right? Or considerably easier compared to the amount of time that it takes. This is time blocking, right? You can do this with every aspect of marketing or admin in your business. You can look at, what am I currently doing? What do I want to be doing, right? What result is this driving in my business? And how can I delete it? How can I delegate it? How can I systematize it, right? How can I make it something that's more consistent over time? This is just an example of thinking like a business owner. This is a little bit more of a kind of a philosophy type video that we walk through with our clinicians a lot. One yesterday on a call was like, the more I look at things, the more I'm learning from you guys. This is all just kind of numbers and data, and that made me kind of happy to hear, because I think that's a good insight. But this is the reality and the truth of it is you have to look at yourself almost like an employee. You have to look at your time in terms of, how am I going to get the biggest bang for my buck? I don't want to waste time if I'm working. If I want to have a bigger result from working less, I need to be really smart about each hour that I put in. But if I am, and I ask the right questions and I continue to improve my process, I can get to the point that in a couple of months, I could double my income working half as much, okay? And if you can accomplish that, a lot of the clinicians that we've helped, or we set up ad campaigns so that they can do that, that's an incredible, amazing thing, right? It's a thing that can make you feel really, really proud. It can make you feel like you are really on top of your stuff when it comes to building a private practice. Okay, so with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is something that I love to kind of help clinicians with, is help them not work more, but be smarter with the time that they apply so they can get a higher outcome. So I hope there's some takeaways for you from this video. Obviously, if you want to work with us directly, or you want to work with me on a call so I can help you with this, there's a link in the bio to check that out. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.